Hello, everybody. It is yours truly, Lone Wolf Rider, as usual. I am here on Christmas night, and I have just received word that I am now streaming. I am now live. So initially, I was gonna have some music playing, but unfortunately, copyright's gonna prevent me from doing so. I'm gonna turn on this computer, keep my phone nice and happy, and I gotta clean my room. So there's that. Okay. I'm gonna do a little trickle charge. Okay, so here we go. There's that. So we're gonna go to the big day when all the bowl games were played, and I think there was a Celebration Bowl. From what I remember, the Celebration Bowl. Hang on, let me look it up. That was the very first bowl. The very first bowl. It's an FBS bowl, but it's the HBCU, which stands for Historically Black Colleges and Universities National Championship. And yeah, whatchamacallit, North Carolina A&T completed the first ever MEAC undefeated season. So I'm gonna take a look at their. Let's see. Charlotte could have upset them, 35-31, and Bethune Cookman could have upset them easily. So they could have been easily 10-2. So yeah, Okay then. So back to this. Okay. Just close that. Okay, so now I'm gonna review each bowl. And I have my little phone, so I'm going to start off with the big one, Troy, North Texas, which was the R&L Carriers Nolans Bowl. So Troy defeated North Texas 50-30. I'm only going to give you like how each team fared, not like, this team player did this player did that. I'm just going to give you like general stats. And I'm probably going to need another bottle of water. So here's how it goes. North Texas won. North Texas outpaced Troy Troy outgained North Texas by 2 yards. Troy had 435 total yards, 305 passing yards, 130 rushing yards, whereas North Texas had an impressive -8 yards. Both teams had 21 first downs each. Troy was better at converting third downs at 5 out of 11. And North Texas had 3 conversions out of 6. So they were 50%. But they also had fewer penalty yards. So they had combined 15 penalties for 146 yards. Troy only had 2 turnovers, and North Texas had 4 punts for 40 average yards. Then you had Georgia State upsetting Western Kentucky 27-17. They had 419 total yards. Western Kentucky had 351 passing yards. Georgia State had 143. Not Georgia State. Georgia State had 143 rushing yards, 21 first downs, 9-17 on third down conversions, 1 for 1 on Western Kentucky were perfect in their only fourth down conversion, but Georgia had 4 penalties for 30 yards, and overall both teams had 14 penalties for 119 yards. Western Kentucky only turned the ball over once, but Georgia State had 3 punts for 39.7 yards. Then you have the Las Vegas Bowl. The Boise State Broncos beat the Oregon Ducks. And basically it seemed like a one-sided affair. Even though Oregon tried to come back in the end, it was all Boise State. 481 total yards, 369 passing yards, 112 rushing yards, 28 first downs, 7 for 16 on third downs. Both teams were perfect in their fourth down conversion attempts. 14 yards for 145 yards. Yeah, just doing some math there. But Boise State had less yards. And I think and then in the Auto Nation Cure Bowl, yeah, Georgia State had 4 penalties for 30 yards. And as I mentioned, Oregon and Boise State had 4 penalties for 50 yards, 3 turnovers, and had 5 punts for 43 average yards. And then you have Marshall and Colorado State in the Gilder, New Mexico Bowl, which Colorado made it a game in the end, but they just couldn't come up with it. So, Marshall had 501 total yards. Colorado State had 320 passing yards. Marshall had 239 rushing yards. Colorado State had 26 first downs. Colorado State were 9 for 19 on third down conversions, over 2 on fourth down, and they had 14 penalties for 122 yards, with Colorado only having 3 penalties, 15. So maybe just like really minor things. Marshall had no turnovers. That's a big thing, and they had 6 punts for 41 yards per average. And then the Raycom Media Camellia Bowl, Middle Tennessee barely beat Arkansas State, even though Arkansas State had 462 total yards, 358 passing yards, 120 rushing yards for Middle Tennessee, 30 first downs for Arkansas. So, 30 first downs. Both teams were exactly the same on third down conversion. Arkansas State got 2 out of 3. Fewer penalties. So it was 17 penalties for 168 yards. But the big thing was the turnover battle. Even though Arkansas State had 5 punts for 42.8 yards, Arkansas State also had 5 turnovers. Middle Tennessee had 1, which was big. All right. And then, this is a weird one. The Cherry Bundy Tart Cherry Boca Raton Bowl, which was essentially a home game for Florida Atlantic, who finished the season 10-3, and it was clearly one-sided. Akron only got 1 field goal. That is dominant. So Florida Atlantic had 582 total yards, 273 through the air, 312 on the ground, 29 first downs, 3 for 12 on third down. Only 1 missed fourth down conversion. But, sorry. Both teams had 10 penalties, 101 yards, with Akron taking fewer, 4 penalties and 49. No turnovers for each team, and 1 punt, 34 yards, because Akron had 7 punts for 45, nearly a little over 45.5 yards. This is just crazy. And by the way, this is where we're ending. We're ending here because I will do this after the 30th. Yeah. 29th. The 30th will be the big bowl games. So yeah. That's that, I believe. we have two more games. We have the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs and the SMU Mustangs in the inaugural DXL Texas Frisco Bowl, which I believe was the former Cactus Bowl. So yeah, Louisiana Tech beat the living shit out of SMU. They had 357 total yards, 216 through the air, 167 yards on the ground for SMU, 20 first downs for SMU, 6 out of 16 on third down conversions, 50% on fourth down. It's pretty evenly matched in penalties. 10 penalties for 85 yards, 3 turnovers, but 3 punts for 41 yards average for Louisiana Tech, whereas SMU had 6 for 39.3 yards. So there's that. Then Temple beat the shit out of FIU. Just a big blowout. Temple had 395 total yards, 254 through the air, 141 on the ground. Both teams had 20 first downs. Temple were more successful on their third down conversions, going 4 for 12. FIU converted their 1 out of 2 fourth down conversions. Both teams had 145 penalties on 16 yards, which could come out to an average of, I don't know. Let me make sure that it's 40. So it's an average about 9 yards per penalty. FIU only had 1 turnover, but the punt game again. I don't think punts matter. So there's that. And that was the Bad Boy Moore's Gasparilla Bowl. All right. Out of all of these games, I think that the Raycom Media Camellia Bowl and the Gilded New Mexico Bowl were the 2 good ones. Because, number 1, they were close, and number 2, I mean, as you can see, it's like, yeah, some of these are close, but this is, look, 20, 10, 10, 3, 5, 47, 41, and 25. So, these 2 bowl games are very, very good against very evenly matched teams. So, good job, New Mexico Bowl and Camellia Bowl. Dream Style Stadium. What the fuck type of stadium is that? Okay. Alright, now we move on to the 6 games, and I'll explain this in a second. Okay, now we move on to the Bahamas Bowl, which was a blowout, with Ohio just beating UAB in their first game back for UAB, their very first bowl game since their controversial suspension. Ohio State, not Ohio State. They're playing USC, two of the shittiest bandwagons in the country. Yeah, just checking something. Okay. So the Ohio Bobcats had 459 total yards, even though UAB won the air battle with 254 passing yards. Ohio had 249 rushing yards, 24 first downs, 2 for 7, 24 first downs, 2 for 7 on the third down conversions. Neither team got a fourth down converted, and 14 penalties for 126 yards, no turnovers. And that was the Bahamas Bowl. And then Wyoming beat Central Michigan. Central Michigan won the yards battle with 364 yards, 346 passing yards, but Wyoming had 121 rushing yards. Central Michigan had 18 first downs, 5 more than Wyoming. Oh, not 5, 3 more than Wyoming. But Wyoming got 6 for 16 on third down conversions. Central Michigan were 3 for 13, but they got all their fourth down conversions. 12 penalties for 110 yards, and both teams were equal in the turnover margin, have 4 apiece, so 8 turnovers combined. Very, very ugly game, but very, very interesting. Okay, so that was the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, by the way. Now we're going to go to the Birmingham Bowl, and I'm going to look at this. This caused me to, I'm going to say it now, this caused me to break a control in anger, and I just felt ashamed. South Florida controversially won, I'm going to say, because a lot of people were saying that it should have been intentional grounding, very missed call. I said it in the USC game because there were some plays that I think should have been called and they weren't. So, yeah, no, some people are probably saying, oh, you're salty, David. You're probably salty. I'm not looking at chat right now, fortunately. I'm looking at this little screen. But, yeah. So, Birmingham Bowl, South Florida won 38-34. 561 total yards. But Texas Tech had 416 through the air. South Florida had 250 on the ground. And both teams combined for over 1,000 yards easy. 27 first downs for USF. 10 for 19. Texas Tech had 9 missed third down conversions. South Florida converted their only one. 20 penalties for 207 yards. And South Florida had 4 turnovers. And a controversial win. Which is why I have it like this. Okay. Now we move on to the Lockheed Armed Forces Bowl. Which, even though this was a good one, this had a very controversial ending. So that's why the score is like that. The Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl pitted the Army Black Knights against the San Diego State Aztecs. Army won 42-35. They had 446 yards through the air. No, not 446 yards through the air. They had 446 yards. And San Diego State had 20. I'm not kidding. You can look it up. San Diego State had 25 passing yards. Army had 440 rushing yards. So you can guess where the other 6 are. Through the air. Probably a screen pass. It's like, holy shit. How do you fucking do that? That gave them 31 first downs, 13 for 18 on missed 5 third down conversion attempts, missed 2 fourth down conversions, and both teams, well, they didn't commit too many penalties. They had 14 penalties for 129 yards, and Army only had 1 turnover, and that's it. Oh yeah, and there was no punting. And then as of today, which is Christmas Day, 2017, this is the only shutout. Appalachian State, very one-sided. I'm gonna say this: Toledo got the only 4th down conversion of the game, their only 4th down conversion, and they got it. And they only had 1 turnover. 9 penalties for a total of 60 yards. But everything else was Appalachian State. They have 458 yards, 131 through the air, 327 on the ground, 23 first downs, 3 for 13 on third down conversions, 4 penalties for 25 yards, but they had 3 turnovers compared to Toledo's only 1. And that was the Dollar General Bowl. And now the very last bowl, which I think was the most exciting out of all these, because it was very back and forth. Fresno State and Houston, high-scoring offenses. So the only bowl game on Christmas Eve, and I'm very, very tired. I've been up since 9 a.m. yesterday, so I've been running on about 34, close to 35, 36, 37. between 35 and 37 hours of sleep. So I'm just going to probably knock out at 9 and just enjoy everything. So yeah, so the Hawaii Bowl, Fresno won 33-27. Okay. So Fresno State had 473 yards, 342 through the air, 131 on the ground, 26 first downs. Houston went 9 for 19 on third downs. Fresno State converted their only fourth down, and there were 13 penalties for 96 yards, I believe, and there were 4 turnovers for each team. Yeah, so, yeah, that's it. Now, an upcoming schedule for each of these teams. There goes my Okay, so other than the other than the Foster Farms Bowl, the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl, that's a mouthful. Excuse me. The Hyundai Sun Bowl, my favorite bowl game. The AutoZone Liberty Bowl, the Nova Home Loans Arizona Bowl, the Outback Bowl, the Citrus Bowl presented by Overton, the Goodyear, and other than that, this is the college football playoff. Other than those bowls that I mentioned, every game is on ESPN. So, yeah. So the bowl game that was played on Sunday was just the Hawaii Bowl, because obviously, Christmas Eve, they want to give you that vibe. So, yeah, so each game, Cactus Bowl. Oh, wait. Cactus. Oh, you know what? I think I messed up for the DXL Frisco Bowl. Let me check. Let's see. Oh. There we go. It's the Miami Beach Bowl. I thought it was the Cactus Bowl. I'm like, for some reason I thought about it. Alright, so there we go. I'm a fucking idiot. Okay, so in the Cactus Bowl, you got Kansas State and UCLA, Quick Lane Bowl, Northern Illinois and Duke, Zaxby's Heart of Dallas Bowl, West Virginia and Utah, the Walk-Ons Independence Bowl, Florida State and Southern Miss, New Era Pinstripe Bowl, Iowa and Boston College, the Academy Sports and Outdoors Texas Bowl, Texas and Missouri. Ooh, that's going to be a good one. The aforementioned Foster Farms Bowl between Purdue and Arizona. The Military Bowl presented by Northrop Grumman between Virginia and Navy. The Camping World Bowl between Oklahoma State and Virginia Tech, making it yet another year with a bowl game. Excuse me. The Valero Alamo Bowl between Stanford and TCU. That should be another good one. The San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl between Michigan State and Washington State at aforementioned San Diego Credit County Union Stadium, formerly known as Qualcomm Stadium. And that's going to be on FS1. As you can see, it's going to be the same time as the Alamo Bowl. So you just switch back and forth if you have it. The Belk Bowl is going to be between Wake Forest and Texas A&M. The Hyundai Sun Bowl will be between the Arizona State Sun Devils and North Carolina State Wolfpack. And I just realized, so let me go back. So there's that. There were these bowls. And then the Franklin American Mortgage Music City Bowl will be between the Northwestern and Kentucky. The Tax Slayer Bowl will be between the Louisville Cardinals and Mississippi State. AutoZone Liberty Bowl will be between Iowa State and Memphis. Nova Home Loans Arizona Bowl between New Mexico and Utah State. New Mexico State and Utah State. Outback Bowl between Michigan and South Carolina with one of the most famous hits in all of college football. The Citrus Bowl presented by Overton's LSU Notre Dame. Then you got the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic between USC and Ohio State. Two shitty teams. Should be an easy one to skip. Then the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl between Washington and Penn State. The Capital One Orange Bowl between Miami and Wisconsin. The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl between UCF and Auburn. The Rose Bowl game presented by Northwestern Mutual between Georgia and Oklahoma. The All-State Sugar Bowl between Clemson and Alabama. And then the winner goes on a national championship game. And if Georgia is in there and Clemson is in there, you know it's going to be a fucking battle. And I'm just going to ask someone to record the ESPN Classic feed if there is one. Because I would love to just see that shit, man. I would just love to see that. That would be cool. And, yeah, you know. So, I will see you all later. Okay? Bye-bye.